Can you talk to me about what kind of rehearsal goes into making these shows happen?
Sure. It's a magic trick, actually.
Are they paid, by the way, or is the orchestra paid?
First of all, that's a good question. Yeah, the people that play in this orchestra, this is not an amateur orchestra. This is not an orchestra, as good as they may be, this is not an orchestra of retired musicians who moved down here from New York. This is an orchestra of active professional musicians who are playing
as a career.
As a career.
Yeah. We are back with episode number 74 of the Sarasota SpeaX podcast. As always, my name is Brad Hannon.
Trey Martell.
Felipe Colon.
And we've got a special guest. We've got a maestro on the podcast. We've got Maestro Bob Vodnoy. How you doing, Bob?
I'm great. Wonderful to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the podcast. As we were talking about kind of before, we're looking forward to learning all about the orchestra. As you may notice, this side of the table probably hasn't been to many orchestras. Felipe, I'm sure, has been to an orchestra or two.
That's just from growing up in New York. My mom is an avid fan of both orchestral music as well as opera and jazz.
I love it. I love it. So
we got a dress code, too.
Yeah, well, that's the suits, and these are the regular people over here. So, I think the IQs go down as you go this way.
Not at all.
This way.
Hey, it's not all about IQ,
Right. Why don't you pop it off then, Felipe, Mr. Orchestra Man?
There's a couple things we wanted to kind of mention. Now, Maestro Vodnoy, is not only the maestro, but you're also the musical director.
Right.
Right? And it's of the Chamber Orchestra of Sarasota.
Correct.
Now, that name is important because it makes you guys very distinctive from other organizations in town, and we have a few. So do you want to tell us about that and what a chamber orchestra is?
Sure. Well, let's just start with the basic word, orchestra. So the word orchestra refers to a group of people playing. If you're a symphony orchestra, well, then you are, this word symphony is describing what kind of music you play. So you play symphonies.
Gotcha.
Big pieces, 60,
Beethoven.
80, 90, Beethoven, Brahms, big pieces. If you're a chamber orchestra, the word chamber is really pointing to where you play. And to a certain extent, the kind of music you play. So it's smaller, and it's more intimate. So on concerts, we may have 15 people playing there. At the high end, maybe 30. So a smaller orchestra playing in a smaller
What would
place.
the average size of a normal orchestra be?
Symphony orchestra.
A symphony orchestra? Sure. At least 60.
Okay.
Between 60 and 90, really.
Now, what do you think a chamber orchestra offers? What advantages do they have over a symphony orchestra, in your opinion?
Oh, I wouldn't say advantages or disadvantages. I would just say it's a very different experience. And in fact, that's been the excitement for me coming to founding this chamber orchestra with my sister who lives here in Sarasota in 2017 is it's a whole new repertoire. I made my professional conducting debut in 1975. And so my repertoire for 35, 40 years was Beethoven, Brahms,
Symphony
Stravinsky,
orchestra.
Strauss, the big choral pieces. And then I come here and decide that starting a chamber orchestra would be a good thing to do. And now all the music is new music for me, which is very exciting.
Well, yeah, especially after doing it for, 75 to now. I don't know how long that is. It's like 50
Well, this year
like
is
that,
my
right?
50th anniversary season, actually.
Wow. So 50 years, and now you're getting to kind of reinvent yourself, huh?
That's right.
So what's the biggest difference or biggest challenge with you going into chamber orchestra versus your past experience with more of a symphony orchestra?
It's just a different kind of experience. So each of them has their challenges, to use your word, and their opportunities. Mm-hmm. There was a famous conductor named Eugene Goossens who once said, with a wave of a hand, you can make the most crashing fortissimos or the most exquisite pianissimos. It really ought to be allowed. So you don't.
That's great.
Who said that?
Eugene Goossens.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think he was pointing to actually how almost sinfully pleasurable it is to do that.
The power.
The power.
The power of being able to control those large
go like
orchestras
that
of 60 plus people.
with your magic wand.
You know, I command you to blow on that instrument now in this manner.
That's it.
There you go.
Whereas with a chamber orchestra, your rapport with the players, the proximity of you to the musicians, you're not more than 8-10 feet away from anybody on the stage, and the closeness to the audience is a different kind of feeling.
As you said, a little bit more intimate, right?
Yeah.
So how long has the chamber orchestra been going for now?
So we played our first concert in 2017.
Oh wow.
And we're a young ensemble in that sense. And for a couple of years, we played just a holiday concert. Then we added a concert, and then COVID hit, and so we decided the best thing to do would be to add more concerts.
It's a great idea.
It was, because for that year we were doing everything streaming. And then after COVID went away, we now were at a higher level of concerts. So we've done as many as 5 concerts in a season. This season we're doing 3.
Okay. And that's just to keep the quality there, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, well, we're doing some pretty ambitious things this year, and so I wanted to concentrate our resources over a concentrated number of programs.
Love it. One of the things that we love to do on the podcast, whether it's, recently we had a kind of a wellness institute, guy who owns a wellness institute, or, it could be a owner of a roofing company, right? We like to really sell the audience on why, if you haven't been to a chamber orchestra event, why they should attend. So let's speak to those maybe who aren't familiar with orchestras and music in general, why somebody would find entertainment or value attending one of the concerts.
Sure. So we're talking about somebody who doesn't have much experience at all with going to a concert. So we're a great choice for the following reasons. First of all, our concerts run about an hour. So you're not
It's not an all-day
buying
event.
into 90 minutes with an intermission and all the rest of that.
That's like when people go to the operas and they talk about, I got to sit through this to get to that one part I like.
Exactly. An opera lasts, on average, about 3 hours. The average full symphony orchestra concert is going to last 2+ hours.
Okay.
We might run 60, 65 minutes.
Right.
So great for before dinner or after dinner. Sure,
the concert's 7:30, so it depends on whether you're a late diner or an early diner.
It's a good date night, for sure.
Well, actually, our February concert is on February 13th. So if you don't want to deal with restaurants on Valentine's Day,
That's a great
make
selling
our
point.
concert your Valentine's experience. Get tickets, come to the concert, go out for dinner either before or after. You'll have a great night.
It's a great excuse to go out on the 13th instead of the 14th.
And that event is February 13th at 7:30 at First Presbyterian. That is the Sparkling Virtuosity event, huh?
Correct.
So let's sell me on this specific event. You're featuring, Victoria Bond, Anne Frank's Tree, featuring Alex Sharp.
That's the March concert.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Okay.
That's the March one.
Wait, I'm still selling on the general
Yes.
concept. Then we'll
Okay.
sell them on this
Deal.
one. Okay, so when you come to a chamber orchestra concert, first of all, the experience is compact. When you come to one of our concerts, you're sitting in an auditorium, in this case, a church that seats 350, 400 people. So you're close to the performers. It's not a big venue.
Right.
So there's an immediacy and intimacy to the sound and the visual experience because you're close to the performers. You can see everybody, and the sound is in a nice contained space.
It's good acoustics.
Oh, the First Presbyterian Church is an absolutely exquisite building. It's a mission-style architecture. It's what we call a shoebox shape. It's a long rectangle, which is perfect for sound. The sound is great. Yeah, so it's the experience is really wonderful.
What does it cost to attend one of the concerts?
Oh, well, I think we're a bargain. Adult tickets are $42, and student tickets are $5.
So like I said, Felipe, perfect date night experience.
Thanks, Fred.
I'll see you there on the 13th.
Appreciate you.
Now, as far as Sparkling Virtuosity is concerned, so our guest soloist is a fantastic pianist named Ina Falix. She's a Ukrainian-born American pianist. She's the head of the piano department at UCLA. She's pretty known here in Sarasota. She's played a number of recitals here, but this was her first performance in Sarasota with an orchestra.
Wow.
I heard her a couple of times in concert, and I said, I gotta invite this pianist. So I actually conduct another orchestra besides the Chamber Orchestra of Sarasota. I have an orchestra in Indiana.
Oh, wow.
Called the Whiting Park Festival Orchestra. We play a 4-concert summer series and a couple of concerts during the winter season as well. I'm like a baseball team.
It sounds like
I have my winter season in Florida, my summer season back home up north.
How common is that? I would think that's relatively common because the audience.
Many conductors have more than one orchestra. I'm happy to say that I'm one of those. So I did a concert with her last summer. She played Gershwin Rhapsody in Blue and Florence Price Piano Concerto. She was great. The audience just loved her. So here she's playing 2 different pieces. One is the G minor Bach Piano Concerto, or Keyboard Concerto, maybe better said. And the other one is one of the real masterpieces of the 20th century. It's Shostakovich's Piano Concerto No. 1. It's really a witty, dazzling piece. And then, so the other pieces on the program include a Rossini String Sonata to open the program, and Johann Strauss's Pizzicato Polka as to give a little bubbly,
energy,
between the 2 concertos, so she doesn't have to play them back to back. So, yeah, that's why I called it sparkling virtuosity, because the music is bubbly and exciting, and she is too.
Very cool.
Tell us about the audience for this type of music, because I would bet for some of our audience, they may recognize some of the names, but they don't know. They're obviously not you or somebody who may be a big chamber music fan, so they might not know those concertos. But give us some context on who the audience is, how astute they are. I'll give you an example. When people talk about the Sarasota Film Festival, there are things that make that festival special and different than other film festivals. You know, what are things that make the Chamber Orchestra of Sarasota different and the audience for the chamber events different? Because I would think Sarasota is a unique place.
Well, it's one of the reasons. So back in 2016, I was down here visiting my sister, and she said, you should start a chamber orchestra here. And, of course, the first thing I said was, do you know how much work that is?
And I already have another orchestra.
Yeah. Well, at that time, I had like 3 other orchestras.
Oh, wow.
So she said, I know everybody. And then I said, well, why do you think that Sarasota needs another orchestra? You've got the Sarasota Orchestra, you've got the opera, you've got the ballet, you've got some choirs. Why that? She said, there's no chamber orchestra here. It'll be a different repertoire. She said, and besides, you're asking the wrong question. I said, what's the right question? She said, well, the right question is, what are you going to do when you retire from that university in South Dakota? And I said, I'm going to move to Sarasota.
Where it's warm.
Where it's warm and start a chamber orchestra. I'm sorry, I wandered off.
Oh, no, that's great.
So the answer was question, I know. Yeah. The question was, what's the audience like?
The audience, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
well, that's the wonderful thing about Sarasota is that the audiences here are experienced and knowledgeable, many of them. There are people who experience going to orchestras all their lives. But there's lots of people. I mean, we're a little informal, and I'll get off the podium at the end of the concert and wander out in the audience and talk to people. And I hear it all the time. Wow, I never heard a chamber orchestra before. I never heard that composer before. I never had an experience like this. This is really great. And we see all ages, too. So
Yeah, and probably all levels of experience as far as been to the orchestra ever, or a regular attendee.
Right, and so sometimes it surprises me. I say somebody and I think, well, they must have been going to concerts all their life, and then they're like, oh no, I was a banker, and never went. All I did was my job for 4 years. And now I came down here and discovered there's something else other than balance sheets.
Well, it's definitely. I mean, in any live performance of any type, when you're talking music, is always great. But I'm curious, is the path to now you're a musical director, of course. You've done plenty of composing as well, and I understand you kind of do both now. Is the entryway into that music, like, were you playing instruments? Were you playing in an orchestra and wanted to become a conductor? Or how does that?
How did I end up being a conductor?
How did that happen? You was just passionate about music and symphony, or?
Yeah, well, you could say that I figured out that I don't know how to do anything else. The straight answer is that my mother was a pianist and a piano teacher. So from the age of a little boy, I started playing. She taught me how to play piano. I started playing violin. My grandmother had a boarding house. And a guy who lived in the boarding house was a violinist in the South Bend Symphony. We just discovered we have a common...
Yeah, Edub and Bob went to the same high school in Indiana.
Literally, this, not just
our producer.
The same high
Yeah.
school.
I was a freshman when he was a senior.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So she got this boarder, and she said to the boarder, so I've got a grandson who's trying to learn to play an instrument. How about if you give him violin lessons? And
So you took some violin lessons.
from him, yeah.
So you guys did a little bartering.
She did the bartering.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Smart
so,
woman.
I mean, it follows from there, but...
Little did she know she would produce a 50-year experienced conductor.
That's it.
And so you played violin. That was the main instrument when you.
Oh, yeah.
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 And did you know then that you wanted to be a conductor, or did you want to be in the orchestra? Or I'm trying to just
When did
figure out how
when did the light bulb go on?
just-
Yeah.
Because it's just the question comes from, it's not something that I feel like everybody grows up wanting to be or do. So
Yeah. Well, there was a point there where I thought I was going to be an eye doctor. My father was an optometrist.
it sounds like a blast.
But it didn't speak to me. So I went to a summer camp called the National Music Camp in northern Michigan, near Interlochen, Michigan. And I played in the orchestra, and I took a conducting class. And
You felt that power.
that's it. This is incredibly good.
Yeah.
So then I stayed there. I went to the winter school, and I had a theory teacher, and I said, I want to write an orchestra piece. And so I wrote an orchestra piece, and then we got a pretty famous new conductor on the faculty, and I studied with him. And then I made a fatal error. I changed schools in the middle of high school. I decided to go to the North Carolina, well, now called the University of North Carolina School of the Arts in Winston-Salem.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the first year of the school. There were a lot of fantastic faculty. And so I just kept doing the same thing, taking violin and writing music and conducting. And this is turning into a long story. So, then that school had a summer classes in Siena, Italy. So I went to Siena, Italy for 2 summers and had a really fantastic Italian maestro as a teacher. And then I finished college at University of Hartford. Good conductor, good school, got into the Hartford Symphony, professional violinist. From there, I got to the Montreux School for conductors and orchestral training. And from there, I went back to. I'm a born-again Hoosier.
Okay.
I went to all these different schools outside of Indiana.
Just to come back.
And at the end, I called up the IU, Jacobs School of Music, and said, so if I come back, will I be an in-state student or an out-of-state student? What's it going to cost? And they were like, oh, well, you were born in Indiana. You've never lived out of the state except for going to school. So you're still an Indiana resident. So
That worked out then.
it did. In 75, in 74, 75, I started auditioning with orchestras and got a post in 75.
So how typical is that? That's an amazing story, but how typical is that of somebody who has that type of career? I mean, was your progression atypical or typical? Or
I don't know.
Has that changed over the years?
See, I don't know if there's a typical.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody has their own little individual path.
I could see that with the arts. 'Cause, right,
It just, some of it's it's a combination of luck and talent. You know, the luck gets you the opportunity, the talent gets you to
Keeps it.
to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you know, I conducted that orchestra in Michigan we talked about earlier. I also conducted the Northwest Indiana Symphony, and then I guess conducted, well, in Sweden and in Italy,
Oh, wow.
in Maracaibo, Venezuela, Taiwan, on the mainland in Hangzhou.
Certainly some
and
benefits
back
with the
in
job,
Italy,
huh? Some great benefits with the job, huh?
Oh, that's really fabulous. Yeah, to be able to travel internationally, and you walk in to a new orchestra, sometimes some very important orchestras, and
What's a very universal language, huh?
that's correct. Yeah. Well, speaking of language, there was when I conducted in Prague with the Czech National Orchestra. I said, should I rehearse in English? I said, I don't speak Czech. I can rehearse in German. So I tried German, and then at the intermission they said, Maestro, all of our English is better than your German.
There you go.
Yeah, I know. I did okay in Venezuela because I took Italian in college, so I could kind of muddle through there.
So how does language? I was assuming actually that there's really not much, verbal language. It's really more, sign. So how is language used? Like I've never seen a.
Well, he has to say,
conductor.
"Hey, violinist, come in." One beat later.
Well, you mean practicing?
Yeah, in the
Or it's
rehearsal.
too loud, too soft. Don't you use Italian words for that anyway?
In rehearsal, it's really a good idea to not talk too much. You have to tell them where you want to start, where you want to stop, and if there's a bowing you want to suggest, or a dynamic you want them to mark in, or sometimes it might be a wrong note. So yeah, you need to talk about that. But long speeches from the podium are not welcomed by the players. They expect you to be able to do it with your hands, or your baton, and your eyes, because you can't talk in the concert.
Right.
So you don't want to get them, acclimated to
Right, verbal instruction that you
to
can't
verbal
use.
instruction
Right.
where you're not going to have that tool in your baton.
Yeah.
Do you ever have to fire any of the players for subpar performance?
Yeah, I'm trying to say with it. How fire is a bad word.
Is it kind of more like
Do
the
you have
post?
to excuse
No.
a player?
So here's a true story.
Hey, to catch the rest of the story, tune in after this break. But we are having a blast. You're going to know Bob and all about the Chamber Orchestra of Sarasota. If you want to get to know him a little bit further, stay tuned for rapid fire questions fueled by food and beer.
I'm Robert Vodnoy, the conductor of the Chamber Orchestra of Sarasota, and this is Rapid Fire.
10 random questions.
10 specific answers.
Nothing off limits.
This is Rapid Fire, fueled by food and beer.
Do you have a favorite musical artist?
Leonard Bernstein.
What's your biggest fear?
That I'll fall off the podium.
You're obviously really successful, but where was your first job?
I was a busboy in a restaurant.
Toilet paper, over or under, or stuck to your shoe?
Over.
Chilling on the beach or hiking in the mountains?
Chilling on the beach.
In a zombie apocalypse, what's your weapon of choice?
A spatula.
Go-to drink of choice?
A dark beer.
I'll drink to that.
What's your Mount Rushmore of musicians? You get 4.
Beethoven, Mozart, Bernstein, and Barbra Streisand.
What's a skill you don't have, but wish you did?
QuickBooks Online.
That's how you business differently. Intuit QuickBooks.
After, of course, eating food and beer, where's the first place you would take visitors in Sarasota besides the beach?
The Chamber Orchestra of Sarasota. so the great conductor Daniel Barenboim was the music director of the Chicago Symphony for many years. And the general manager or CEO was Henry Vogel. So this story is one that...
I've heard that name.
Yeah, so Henry told the story. The story is that he said, if there was somebody in the orchestra that needed to retire, Barenboim and I had an agreement. If he saw an opportunity, he would sort of gently breach the subject. And if it went well, great. If it didn't, well, then I, as the great CEO, I would swoop in and do the dirty work. So after a concert one afternoon, at the end of the concert, Barenboim walked up to one of the violinists on the stage who was just getting ready to leave, and he said, "So I noticed that your eyes were closed during the last piece on the program." And the violinist said, I was just enjoying the music. Barenboim said, yeah, well, but your eyes were closed while the rest of your section was playing. So the violinist was a wise, experienced man, and he drew himself up to his full height, and he said, Maestro Barenboim, I know what's going on here, and I want you to know I'm going to die in that chair.
I'm not retiring.
And Barenboim said, oh, I'm sure Henry will let you take it with you.
That's good. So, which does lead me to another question, because these are fun. It's a live event. Things have to go wrong occasionally. What's the worst thing that's ever happened? Did someone fall out of a chair? Did a cymbal fall? Did someone drop an instrument? Like
Okay.
Give me the horror story. Come on.
The worst story?
We need the juice.
Okay, so we talked about, so that first orchestra that I auditioned for and got the post in 1975, during the season, there was a timpani player, Sam Reed, I think.
Oh, name dropping.
And
Called out Sam Reed.
Sam
Still
was,
alive.
No, he's not. He's
Okay.
not alive.
Rest in peace.
Sam was an old man in 1975.
Okay.
In fact, Sam had played with John Philip Sousa.
Which is even older, I'd imagine.
Well, okay, so he probably played with John Philip. He played with John Philip Sousa, maybe, let's say in 19...
You know who that is, Trey?
Oh, yes, you do. Stars and Stripes Forever.
Stars and Stripes.
So Sam had played, that's how long and illustrious career Sam had. And so Sam was up on the risers playing timpani.
Which is?
The big kettle drums.
Gotcha.
It looks like you're sitting behind, a
big drum.
Right, four of them, all copper.
Right.
And he was playing along, and then he tugged on the timpani to tune it, and he had forgotten to lock the wheels. And so the
Rookie mistake.
All these years he had
all
on his
those
belt,
years.
too.
And so the timpani rolled toward him, and he was up on a riser, and so he pulled the timpani on top of himself, and he fell back, and he fell into the acoustical shell behind the risers.
Wow.
And as I'm standing on the podium conducting, I see the timpani disappear, and the shell moves, and poor Sam.
And you lost your bass drum, too.
Buried under the timpani.
Rest in peace, Sam.
No. He wasn't hurt.
Good.
If he had been actually hurt, I would never have told that story.
Yeah.
But he was never hurt. He was just a little embarrassed.
I can imagine.
And so you asked for a...
Did the show go on is the real question.
Sure.
The show must go on.
go on.
And everybody just played right through it.
Oh, no. We had to stop and get Sam up off the ground.
I didn't know if you continue without the timpani drums or whatever you call them, or you just, played right on.
So we're looking at the schedule here. So December 5th, February 13th. Can you talk to me about what kind of rehearsal goes into making these shows happen?
Sure. It's a magic trick, actually.
Are they paid, by the way, or is the orchestra paid?
First of all, that's a good question. Yeah, the people that play in this orchestra, this is not an amateur orchestra. This is not an orchestra, as good as they may be, this is not an orchestra of retired musicians who moved
Right.
down here from New York. This is an orchestra of active professional musicians who are playing
As a
It's-
career.
As
essentially.
a career.
Yeah.
So we have players who play in the Sarasota Orchestra, who play in the Sarasota Opera, who play in the Florida Orchestra, who play in the Venice Symphony.
Gotcha.
Yeah. They are
Top shelf.
top shelf. Yeah. So for that February concert, which we actually have one rehearsal.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, the rehearsal's at 2, concert's at 7:30. That's why I can guarantee you that it's a fresh performance.
But I assume they're
Dial up-
practicing at home. You're giving them the music.
Oh,
and they're
they've already had the music
Yeah.
for a while. Sure.
So there's a lot of practice and hard work that goes into it, but you rehearse as a group, essentially
Once.
as an orchestra, one time.
One time, right. Now, the pianist and I will have a separate rehearsal, just so we're on the same page. Now, in the March concert, that's a bigger, harder program, and one of the pieces on that program is actually a Florida premiere. So that means that nobody in the orchestra has played it before.
Wow.
So, we're doing in February, we're doing a Shostakovich piano concerto. Yeah, well, a lot of them have played it. The trumpeter Jesse Cook, is a big trumpet part, he's played it before.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not like
Foreign.
discovering America.
They know the song already.
Yeah.
They already know the songs.
Yeah.
Right. Although
So Florida premiere is when no one in the orchestra has ever played it.
it's never been played in Florida.
Oh, it's never been played in
In
Florida.
fact, it's only been played once. It was premiered. We're talking. I'm sorry, listeners. We've jumped around here.
That's
but
okay.
We're playing the March concert, March 20th. It's called Anne Frank's Tree, and I named the program after the piece Anne Frank's Tree by Victoria Bond, and it's for narrator and chamber orchestra. Actually, our narrator is Alexa Scharf, who's a senior at Booker High School.
Oh, cool.
And it's obviously based on the Diary of Anne Frank. So that's going to be a new piece for everybody.
And so when you say narrator, there's a story that goes along with the music, I'm assuming?
Yes, the composer has selected excerpts from the diary. And if you've read the diary, you know that the chestnut tree was very important to her because it symbolized growth and freedom. So what's excerpted are all the sentences that have to do with that tree.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That would probably be a great one for a young person to attend because I know,
Absolutely.
school-age children read that book.
They read that
Yeah,
book,
it's a-
and high
it's a great
school
book.
students will see a peer performing too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, wait, now let's go back to February.
Let's go.
So that program, that's the one we were talking about, would be a good Valentine evening
That's
concert.
a good date night.
It's a good date night.
Like a new date, a wife, either one.
I don't want to give.
Both at the same time.
He doesn't want to give romantic advice.
I know.
Smart man.
I don't want to give. I don't want to give social advice.
Bring your wife and your girlfriend, Trey. In other words.
That's right. It's going to be so perfect that your wife and your girlfriend will enjoy it. That's what. Yeah.
Who you bringing, Felipe?
Don't start with me, bro. Every time you talk about me on this program, I get in trouble with somebody. I'm getting calls from my mom. I'm getting calls from people
Your
I don't
mom's
talk
getting
to.
mad at me.
Oh my lord!
Your mom is a saint. She is
Now,
absolutely a saint.
Only in public.
Everybody needs that mom.
She's awesome. She's Felipe's biggest fan for sure.
So March 20th is the second concert we're talking about, and that's the Florida premiere of Anne Frank's Tree by Victoria Bond. There's two other really wonderful.
Same ticket price for that one. That one seems like it should be more expensive.
No, we don't do that. Same price.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so we're going to open that concert with a piece by Erich Korngold. It's his suite from Much Ado About Nothing, the Shakespeare play. He wrote it when he was 19 years old. Great, terrific, virtuoso piece. And then the concluding work on the concert in the season is Mendelssohn's Violin Concerto with George Maxman, who's a internationally renowned violinist. Actually lives here in Bradenton.
Very cool. We have an incredible arts community here. That's arts and music, all of that.
That's
That's one of the things that we've uncovered on this podcast. We didn't uncover it, but it's been uncovered to me. I didn't realize. I mean, obviously, we have the arts district, we have the opera, we have all of the things we've talked about. But I didn't realize quite how large it really is until we've had people like yourself on. So it's always interesting and entertaining to learn about things that I haven't actually attended. So I think that February 13th would be a good one to
well, you're going to come on February 13th, and you're going to be so taken by it, you're going to come back.
I believe it.
Yeah, and by the way, I should mention that the March 20th concert has some important sponsors. So the Women's Exchange Foundation, the Jewish Federation of Sarasota Manatee, and the Tourism Development Council, the tax. We have a support from that.
Awesome.
And there's a major sponsor as well for March 20th, Ling Z and Michael C. Markovitz, and lots more people.
Right. And I did see, I saw in your pamphlet here a lot of the sponsors that you've given acknowledgement to, whether they've contributed, 100 to 250, 25 to 100. So is that a pretty common thing when people, come to the orchestra? They typically support through donation and.
Well, we hope so. We hope that. We're typical of any performing arts organization. The ticket prices are going to cover maybe a third of the cost.
Right.
So the rest of it has to come from advertising, sales, grants, and individual gifts.
Now you mentioned the fact that we have the Sarasota Opera, we have the Sarasota Orchestra, the Florida Orchestra, we have the performing arts is here prior to you starting the chamber orchestra, and that was kind of almost why do we need a chamber orchestra? So leads me to a question: were you well received when you decided to start the chamber orchestra, or was it viewed as competition amongst the performing arts community, or was it warmly welcomed?
No,
I
would say we've been warmly welcomed. I think that all the performing arts organizations here are well aware that this is a big and growing audience and a thriving arts community, as exemplified by the Arts and Cultural Alliance of Sarasota County, which we're all members of.
Right.
As well as, of course, the Visit Sarasota County.
What is your favorite performing arts event outside of chamber orchestra locally?
Yeah. Well, I guess for me, I go to all of them. In fact, we just went to the Florida Orchestra a couple nights ago, and go to the ballet, we go to the opera, we go to the symphony. For me, I guess I really like the opera because the rest of them feel like a busman's holiday, if you know what I mean.
Right.
I go and I know I done that piece 5 times. Oh, they did that. And
you can see what went right. You can see what went wrong. It's almost.
I don't say wrong, but you know what I mean.
It's almost like you're going to work, whereas the opera is just pure leisure.
The opera is different for me. I've conducted a lot of opera in my career, Marriage of Figaro and Hansel and Gretel and All the Night Visitors. Carmen, but it's really not my.
Your niche.
My niche. So I'm more relaxed, let's say.
Makes sense.
I recognize a lot of the names in the program, so you guys have done very well you're getting both individual support and you're getting, the small business and corporate support. So, obviously you're doing something right. Wanted to touch on, we talk about Sarasota being this arts community, and Brad alluded to the competition. It's a horrible analogy, but, competition usually, it makes sense when they're all in the same place. Somebody won the Nobel Prize in Economics explaining why all the fast food restaurants are next to each other, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's the same thing here. People come to Sarasota because it's an arts community, and they know they're going to get world-class arts.
Exactly.
Right? And from how you describe your career and the way you operate, clearly, you're a world-class conductor and music director. Have to say that. How does it work? We always talk about how Sarasota has the highest number of artists per capita because of all these arts organizations. Who are the people around you that make this thing go? Who are the musicians? Like, what are your thoughts on living in Sarasota as an artist? Maybe at different levels, stages of your career.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Tell us about living in a place like this as a working artist.
Yeah. Well, I think that for me, it's the richness of the cultural life that's so wonderful. One of our sponsors is Palm Avenue Fine Art Gallery, and we were at a black tie event that they have had for the opening of the gallery for the season. And, they have a terrific stable of painters, and there were most people who were there were people who collect those artists. So, that to me showed, an art gallery around here decides it's going to open its season, and what do? They invite their clientele and their artists, and everybody shows up in a tuxedo.
So it runs deep. It
Yeah.
runs deep in the community. I want to stay on you and your career for a second longer before we kind of shift over to Sarasota. You've obviously performed in different, countries and continents and different orchestras and such. What is the highlight of your career? You've had a long career, 50 years now. What's the highlight of your career?
Okay, so in a week or so, I'm going to be doing a lecture at Temple Beth Israel. And they asked me to talk about my favorite composer. So my usual answer to that is, people say, who's your favorite composer? And I usually am a little evasive, and I say, whoever I'm working on at the moment.
You can't pick favorites,
No, but you get engrossed in what you're working on. The desert island question is a different one. If you were stuck on a desert island, you could only have one composer. Who would that be? So
Like to listen to or to hang out with?
to listen to.
Okay, I was going to say, 'cause some of those guys are probably
So
pretty weird.
I'm playing the Tom Hanks role.
Right.
What am I going to do as a castaway? Well, okay, it would have to be Beethoven.
Okay.
But I
Same
didn't.
here, by the way. That would
Yeah.
be my choice.
Yeah.
This would be the one that came to mind anyways.
Yeah. Well, it's because all the pieces are really, most of them are perfect, really, and there's such a broad range. But the composer I chose, which goes to the question you asked me, I didn't lose the thread here,
Okay.
would be Gustav Mahler. Because probably the greatest experience I could say I've had on the podium was conducting Mahler's Resurrection Symphony, Symphony No. 2. If you saw the movie with Bradley Cooper, that's the piece he's conducting at the end.
Which one?
Oh, the one where he's playing Leonard Bernstein.
Anyone?
I forget.
Okay.
I'm
Hardly
not a
anybody
movie
saw
buff.
that movie.
Yeah. No, I've heard a lot of the one you're talking about.
But anyway,
I mean, Bradley Cooper was in it. A lot of people had to see it. It's
that's true.
kind of a big deal.
Anyway, because when you're conducting, first of all, the piece itself is fantastic. And second of all, you got 120, 130 voice, 150 voice choir. You got an 80 voice, 80 piece orchestra, and there's an offstage brass band. And you're up there on the podium marshaling all these forces for about an hour and a half. So it's
All
it's
in
a
all, about
Maslowian peak experience.
A couple hundred musicians.
A couple hundred
artists.
musicians and people out in the audience who are, they know they're
Sophisticated.
coming in for a big deal. So yeah, I would say that would be
When was that?
in the 1990s.
Wow. And that's the highlight, huh?
Well, there's been a lot of big, great. You asked me the highlight.
Yeah, I know
You know,
that's
how many-
that's
the
that's
Mount
what I'm saying.
Everest,
That's
I
the
guess.
highlight.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to the next highlight, which hopefully will be with the Chamber Orchestra Band, right?
Sure. I'm really looking forward to the, particularly to the Anne Frank's Tree, because the composer, Victoria Bond, she and I have known each other professionally for about, maybe 30 years, and she's going to be here. And she's a composer and a conductor, and she's going to be
So
here.
is she conducting that one, or are you?
No, I am.
You are, and
Yeah.
she's composing.
Yes.
And what
she's already composed
Oh,
it.
she composes like writing the music, right? You can see how illiterate I am.
Right. She wrote this piece it was premiered in January of 2024
Gotcha.
in Indianapolis.
Very cool. You said something. I was wanting to steer to Sarasota, but you said something that kind of triggered me, and I'm just like always trying to learn when I have somebody on that I've no real background in music. You said almost every piece that Beethoven composed was almost perfect.
Yeah.
What makes perfect music? I mean, obviously, it's for me, for Trey, for Felipe and
Tom
someone that's
Petty.
not distinguished. It's like something that sounds good that we like, that we can maybe sing or hum to or whatever, right? You're looking at it from a completely different perspective. I'm curious what makes it almost perfect.
Yeah. Well, it has to do with the way Beethoven's, not to get too
No, get
into
technical. That's the
weeds here,
point.
yeah.
That's fine.
But the way his compositional process worked. And so you know, da 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 da, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I do know that one.
You know that one. Okay. So you know that that's three shorts. Da da da.
I did not know that.
It's three
now
short.
now you're stretching it.
Yeah, you did. It's three short notes
Okay.
and a long note. Pa,
Okay.
pa, pa, pa.
Yes, gotcha.
Pa 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 pa.
Yes.
Okay. So every tune in that entire symphony, not just the first movement, but every movement uses that motif in some way.
Which is different from
There's no other composer who integrates the piece in such a way that it flows completely organically from the very
across
first
any
note
instrument.
to the very last note. And the more you get to know the piece, the more you sense the logic of the way it unfolds. Plus, there's another thing that Beethoven does, which is the music seems to be a kind of autobiography. It seems to tell a story about the emotional life of the composer. And through a kind of magic that I don't really know how to explain, most people, when they listen to it, the composer's journey becomes their journey. So they take the Fifth Symphony. It goes from darkness to light. It goes from tragedy to triumph. That's pretty clear.
And so you can like feel the emotion.
You feel the emotion, but in a way that he was telling it. You can identify with it in a very immediate way. And there's very few composers who do that.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And that's the unique perspective that I love to hear from our expert guests. So we appreciate that. With that, I'm gonna kick it over to Trey. We're gonna shift gears a little bit to Sarasota. We're gonna lighten it up a little bit. And,
Eric, hit it.
Eric's
All
gonna
right.
hit it.
Uh-oh.
Tom and Interlaw and Trey Martell both want to know, what are your feelings on roundabouts? You love them or hate them? And maybe some perspective about living abroad.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, of course, is that Chevy Chase movie, European Vacation. And you're nodding because you remember that he gets trapped.
I know that one. I know that movie.
He can't get out. Yeah. Well,
Do you struggle with them, or are you a fluid driver? Like,
yeah. Well, I guess I would say that many roundabouts, not all roundabouts, but many roundabouts are a big improvement over a four-way. I absolutely. There are some which, to my amateur assessment, the amount of land, of area that the roundabout is sitting in, so that the way that you can enter it and get out of it, some of the egresses and what's the opposite?
Ingress.
Ingress and egresses cross each other. And those are a little scary because it's a little hard to you turn into Chevy Chase. You don't know how to get out of where you're at.
They don't flow quite like Beethoven.
They don't flow. And I understand, let's see where that one is. Yeah.
That's the UTC one. You'll get
You
entranced.
can't stare at them too long.
You'll get
You
entranced
kill
in
it.
the
Yeah,
screen for
Well, that
sure.
one's pretty good.
we like that one because
Yeah,
you
no,
can
it's
get in
okay.
and out.
Yeah, you can see that the outside
line work
lanes
is
are outside
well
lanes
done.
are complete and the inside lane is complete, but not all of them are.
This one right here. This one's rough.
Yeah, let's say this some are more successful than others. Is that a good diplomatic answer?
Yes, that's a great diplomatic answer.
I don't know whether a lot of cities back in the 70s and 80s decided they were going to save their downtowns by getting rid of making them one-way streets and getting rid of parallel parking or not having no parking, all the rest of that. And so after they spent millions of dollars tearing it all up, then after 20 years later they were like, nah, we need streets to go downtown.
We need the parking. We need the one
parking,
ways.
yeah. So
Sarasota has put in parking meters 3 times and it costs between $700,000 and $1 million each time. This is the only time it's stuck.
Yeah.
So
So let's hope it doesn't.
So let's hope that the roundabouts that they put in 25 years from now, well, at least I won't be here. You guys will still be here, so you can visit.
We're living till 150, 160
all
years
this
old.
great
I
health
think.
advice for
All right, so you can leave a note. I'm Jewish, and so you can come to the cemetery, and whether you put the little rock on my tombstone, you can put a little note that says, "Nope, didn't work."
Deal. We'll let you know. We'll let you know.
Yeah, well, let me know when you place the rock.
So no, you made a good point though that we haven't talked about the land use involved with roundabouts. You need a lot of space to put them in there, and that kind of changes things. So the smaller ones, it might not make a sense. I don't think anybody said that yet on the podcast.
Interesting take.
You know.
I want to pass it to you, Felipe, to take us home here.
Sure. So you've been on Sarasota SpeaX. You see what we do here. Thank you for coming, by the way. We enjoyed it. It was great to learn about the Chamber Orchestra of Sarasota and your illustrious career.
I want to say, you guys, if I had any trepidation, which I did not, you put me at ease. It's been a great conversation.
Great to hear.
So
Appreciate that. So, who do you know who we may not know, who Sarasota needs to know? Who can you recommend we invite on Sarasota SpeaX?
Okay, so I guess I can name a lot of people, but if I was going to pick two, I would say Hannah Bramer, who is a operatic soprano. She sings at the Sarasota Opera. She's a really delightful person and a wonderful singer. And so that would be someone that your audience would be interested in. And then there's a violist, who's my principal viola, named Rafael Ramirez. And he plays not only viola, he also plays mandolin, and he plays a lot of pops as well as classical concerts. He plays in the Venice Symphony. We're delighted that he's my principal violist. So those are two.
That's great. Two working musicians who are doing big things in Sarasota. I think that's someone
Absolutely.
who our audience may not know if, they're busy working, right? I mean,
Right. And also I'm thinking that, so I don't know this for a fact, but I'm thinking that maybe our listeners or our viewers are maybe younger than me anyway. You guys age.
I don't know. We get some interesting demographics. We actually have a large senior community that listens to the podcast.
Okay, I didn't want to leave those guys out.
I think we're all surprised when we see those metrics, but it's great guests like you that attract those types of people that are going to these orchestras and wondering about why they should attend the chamber orchestra.
Well, I really, I'm happy to have been here to have a chance to get to know maybe a different audience that normally comes to our concerts. Because
Absolutely.
we are really a gem.
Well,
I'd say with
thanks
all
for coming
modesty.
on, and hopefully being on the podcast, we'll get some new attendees, new fans of the chamber, and I think you can see me, Trey, Felipe with our wonderful dates. Trey's going to have a couple for the Chamber Orchestra of Sarasota event in February. So thank you
Great.
so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That was fun.